And other members of the National Command Council are indeed about to brief the media on the gazetted regulations issued in terms of the Disaster Management Act. Now, the regulations are in response to the COVID-19 outbreak. As you saw there, my colleague Natasha Phiri getting ready for us in Pretoria as we get to that briefing. Natasha, it gets interesting at a time like this because we don't know exactly what those issues are. The pandemic itself continues to spread, and more outbreak just means that more measures need to be put in place.
Definitely, Arabile, more measures are set to be put in place, and this takes effectively from today. But before that briefing, Arabile, the president and of course members of the religious community still need to brief members of the media, and of course my colleague Criselda Lewis, who has been covering the story extensively, is on top of that. So unfortunately, we have still to wait for the president and the religious community, those religious leaders, to get back to the media, and then our press briefing will then start. So that pushes back the time. We were told that our briefing would start at 1 o'clock, but we actually have to wait furthermore. And as you correctly say, that the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, of course with members of the National Command Council, will brief the media on the gazetted regulations, of course, which were issued in terms of the Disaster Management Act. And of course, as you know, that our country, or rather there was a declared national disaster that was actually announced on Sunday. That came from President Cyril Ramaphosa. Of course, we heard the various measures that he put to actually combat, the outbreak of the coronavirus. I mean, as of yet, the number of infected South Africans sit at about 116, with Gauteng actually coming out tops with most of those numbers. But in terms of, some of, the Disaster Management Acts of the regulations under that are stipulated, of course, you all know by now that there's a prevention and prohibition of gatherings. And of course, that has been emphasized over the past 3 days, Arabile, saying that people can't gather. There's a prohibition, I beg your pardon, of 100 people, where more than 100 people actually can't gather at an event. And of course, that also means church gatherings, political gatherings. And we've seen there various political parties have then cancelled their events, namely the ANC has cancelled, the much anticipated ANC Youth League event, the NGC, the DA itself has cancelled its policy conference, which is to take place soon. We've heard there the ANC also cancelling the Sharpeville commemoration, and of course other parties like the EFF. We've also heard and seen a number of churches like the Rema Bible Church, like Hope Restoration Church, cancelling their events as well. As of course an update, we know that the Limpopo Premier Stan Mathabata will be meeting with St. Agnes Church, of course, to liaise over this matter. But quite also an interesting point, Arabile, is that of the South African Zionist Church. Of course, you'll remember they were in conversation with Peter Ndoro yesterday, and they had said that simply they don't see the need why they shouldn't gather. So, I mean, these are also some of the conversations that these religious leaders and President Ramaphosa are actually having behind closed doors. What actually is the way forward? Because, I mean, as much as people want to gather in the name of worship, Arabile, people need to be, very cautious. And of course, people need to take heed to these regulations that have also come out. Also, other regulations that are stipulated under this act is the closure of schools and care facilities, especially in regards to the young ones. We know that schools have been closed from the 18th of March, and of course, this will be until the 15th of March. But I mean, this period may be extended as well. We also have learned there the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Bladen Zimande, also announcing that varsities will be closed throughout this period. There's also the suspension of visits, Arabile, basically meaning that members of the public are prohibited to actually visit people in correctional services, people who actually remanded in detention facilities, and etc. And of course, another caution from the minister that actually came out is that any spread of fake news on coronavirus, that person is actually or will be prosecuted by the law. So these are just some of the issues that the minister will be briefing us out. And of course, another issue here, a contentious issue, will be the issue of the Tshwane City Council. As of now, the NCOP has voted that the Tshwane City Council be dissolved, and we also expect the minister to actually speak somewhat to this.
Yeah, Natasha, thank you so much for that. Certainly interesting, permutations galore, and we'll certainly find out a little bit more, of course, as that briefing continues later on today. My colleague Natasha Phiri out in Pretoria.